It should not come as a surprise that a country founded on a tax revolt, one person is not allowed to raise taxes. Our founding fathers saw this and said no.
Okay, so Jim Pfaff, I'm going to ask you. I don't disagree with anything he just said. Is there a but, comma?
Oh, big but. First, two things about this. Wrong battle. We got much worse battles that we need to be fighting in terms of what Congress needs to change in its behavior, which is far worse than any negatives that my friend Rand Paul, and I have a lot of respect for Rand, but, it's far worse than anything Rand is talking about there. And I think that some of the arguments are worth having. Do we want to have a president setting tariffs? Well, Congress made that decision some time back. They said, yes, the president may do this, and that's why he has the authority to do it. But here's one other point that is easily missed in the tariff debate, and that's this. The unfairness that exists in other countries, the willingness of our elected officials, talk about taxation without representation, to allow China to continue running roughshod over reality and really stealing much of our wealth. They still are intellectual property. They are treated like a third world country at the WTO, which we shouldn't submit to anyway, but they are treated like a third world country there, even though they're the second largest economy in the world. We've given up a lot of our wealth to certain other countries because of stupid trade deals we make. And then the last point I'll make is this, from the libertarian perspective that he comes from, and frankly I do too, about limited government and limited regulation in the economy. We need to make bilateral trade deals with countries that are fair on both sides. We've been needing to do this for a long time, and I come from the Austrian school of economics thinking. I really do believe we need to have zero tariffs if we can. The problem is every one of our trade deals favors the other country. We sort of started this right after World War II, when, though we spent a lot of money, we were not a destroyed country. We wanted to allow countries to refresh themselves, and we kind of gave them extra benefits. That scenario's gone. Donald Trump is, in my opinion, right to take this battle on and try to reset things.
Jim Pfaff is the president of the Conservative Caucus, theconservativecaucus.org. And as you say in your mission statement, create a grassroots conservative network uniting people of widely varying backgrounds in peaceable defense of our country, Constitution, and common values. Defense. Defense, defense, defense. Provide for the common defense. That's what I always like to point to. That's the preamble. That's the first action item in the preamble, as you know. Provide for the common defense. China is eating our lunch. If we do not tackle that monster known as China, it's just a matter of time. And Trump is doing something really hard. And, Jim, I was just talking about this tomorrow. The hobby industry, my family personally, is in the model train business, and it's a lucrative one, and it's one that millions of Americans participate in as hobby and as a business, as living. They're being killed if this tariff thing continues, because most of the trains are made in China. No surprise. And so there's this healthy discussion that industries like theirs, and I'm sure many others that I don't even know, we're all kind of staring ourselves in the face thinking, well, here we are. Our business is built on what's made in China. And I think we all acknowledge, most of us acknowledge, that makes us vulnerable. But in the short term, this is a really uncomfortable place to sit. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. But it's a bed that we made, over a far worse problem near the founding of our country, slavery. Thomas Jefferson said, it's like holding a rabid dog by the ears. You don't want to let go of, you dare not let go of it, but you know that you need to get rid of it, so to speak. And that's a far worse situation than trade with China, but it's still a bad one. Listen, this is a really bad situation with them. We've gotten totally unbalanced, and people have been trying to argue that it's free trade that is the reason that we've opened up to China in precisely the way we did. Well, that's not really what happened. This was a lot of corporate interests who wanted to take advantage of low wages, which, by the way, are going away in China. Let's keep that in mind. The wages aren't as low in manufacturing over there as they used to be. It's still lower. But the problem that we have faced is we have literally handed our wealth over to them.
Yes.
And that's hard.
We're dependent. We're totally dependent. And not just for, and I don't say it to be a sad sack. It's not just that. It's pharmaceuticals.
Right.
I continue to say when COVID rolled through and our store shelves were bare and people started freaking out, that's because of our dependence on China. I mean, we are wholly dependent on stuff being put on container ships and being sent to us. And there are some that would argue, Jim, we'll never, ever not be that because we just can't make things here. Too expensive, people won't do the work, whatever. What do you say to that as a conservative?
Well, take the model train industry your family's in. I mean, I'm sure it's a decent product that's coming from China over there, but I also know that at least the way our manufacturing base has historically been, we've always been at the very top end of manufacturing. So if you'd like a high-end model train, you probably would, at least historically, wanted that made here and not there. They do cut corners. We have had things that China manufactured, particularly in the dog food industry. Remember this not long ago? There was a bunch of poison coming in dog food over here that China was making. There are real risks of doing that. Listen, I don't care if pharmaceuticals or anything might be manufactured in some other country if the trade deal is fair. I do not want and have not wanted. I opposed most favored nation status for China back in the late 90s. I screamed and yelled about it while conservatives at the time were pushing for it. But I don't mind if manufacturing happens in another country. I don't want our manufacturing, as it has over the last 30 years, to be unnaturally removed from our economy. We have to set this back straight.
I had Erin McGuire, a Republican strategist, in studio with me yesterday, and I asked her point blank. Now, caveat, she did do some work for Thune, and she has friendship with Thune, a relationship personally. But I asked her, I said, can we trust John Thune? Will he deliver? I asked many House Republicans, and most of them this week, Jim, were very pleased with John Thune and said he came to us, he promised us things. We haven't had that before. We certainly didn't have it with Mitch McConnell. How do you feel about this Senate bringing home the big, beautiful bill? I think the House has a better shot, oddly, which I wouldn't have said before.
Yeah, it is kind of odd, and frankly, I have some concerns about it other than the taxes. I think the taxes are tax cuts, even the new ones that Trump has proposed, are going to make it through the House bill. John Thune, listen, I don't trust any leadership in a Republican Congress. As I've told you, as I've said many times publicly, the weak aspect of the Trump agenda is Republicans in Congress. That said, John Thune did get the nominees through. I mean, that was very helpful, and we've got a great bunch of people that are in the Trump administration that they did. But I get concerned when Thune said this week that, we have rules over here we got to deal with and blah, blah, blah. Listen, they can change the rules with a majority vote if they want to. And this particular rule is not one that would destroy whatever sense of decorum or structure that people in the Senate have historically, which, by the way, most of what the Senate does in its rules is not historical. But this needs to happen because it's good for the American people. And I want $1.5 trillion of cuts that they promise to happen in the first 2 years, not in the out years of 10 years that are never going to materialize anyway. That's only a projection. So we've
Jim Pfaff at the Conservative Caucus, my friend. I appreciate your insights as always. Thank you very much for boiling down some tough stuff. We're having a healthy discussion in this country as conservatives right now. It's time we have it. Thanks, Jim.